This is the true spiritual awakening that happens. It's not coming to a realization that you are an illusion, your personality is not real, and what you are is nothing, and then you should become nothing again, or you should merge into something that you're not. This is not spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is coming into self-love, congruence with who you are, and realizing your full potential. And so once this happens, immediately it creates a division among the people who teach the opposite of that. Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is your host, Cyrus, and I know it's been a minute since I had any proper videos up. I have been traveling once again quite a bit. I've been very exhausted, 24 hours on airplanes and layovers. Just a couple days ago, landed in my new destination. You may be wondering, where in the world is Cyrus this time? I used to watch this show when I was a kid, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. Never knew that this would actually become my lifestyle someday, except I'm not a wanted fugitive, at least not yet. Where am I? Well, different opportunities, different circumstances, different things I'm pursuing has led me back to the Asian continent instead of going back home to the USA, which was my original plan. And so suddenly, here I am in Bangkok again. I don't necessarily live like a baller. I live in an affordable way. But in Bangkok, this is perfectly fine. I'm here for just a few nights. Then I'm heading south. But to continue, so in this video, as you know, in this channel, we do different topics, whether it's technical para subjects like how to astral travel or other types of concepts like that, or sometimes refuting bad information or talking about details of what people experience in regard to the astral worlds or life after death. And then sometimes videos are just more strictly philosophical or based upon ideas that get in my head that give me insomnia that I'm up late thinking about, and then I need to get them out of my head and out into the world. And that's what this video is. I hope this is of some benefit to you. Before we go further, go down, hit that subscribe button, like the video, share the video if you think that this message will help other people as they learn and try to navigate their own spiritual paths in life. So what am I talking about this time? Well, I'm talking about how oftentimes an actual, quote, real spiritual mission path, thing that you need to do in your life, it's sometimes the opposite of what you may be reading in certain books, what certain people who identify as gurus, and there's some of these dolts out there who actually give themselves the title of guru, and they look really, really important on some YouTube channel, and tell people the way it is in life, and then people follow that to a T, and yet it doesn't seem to have the effect that they want it to have. And interestingly, I've come to find that there is this opposite effect, that I think sometimes teachings can be so backwards that doing the opposite of what they tell you to do is the correct thing to do. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of that and how you may be able to use this effectively in your life for various purposes, whatever it may be. So the most common, and I think the one that really stands out to me, because you see this all the time, and believe me, there's a lot of stuff out there, is of course, avoid the negative, avoid the shadow, don't confront what's on the inside, and avoid negative thinking. Pretty much any psychologist worth their salt will say that this is really a really bad idea. It leads to a condition called spiritual bypassing, where you are pushing aside things that are clearly a part of you that should be worked out, and putting on this kind of fake veneer of positivity, which is not authentic. And this is why in spiritual communities, including some of these great backpackers here in Thailand who come out wearing the hippie clothes, you got the guys with man buns, and they walk around with this kind of fake smile on their faces, and they listen to a lot of Hindu so-called gurus and New Age teachings, and certain popular personalities here on YouTube. but you get this weird gut feeling about something is not authentic. Where does that come from, and why does that happen? Well, it's because they're listening to a lot of hogwash about avoiding the negative, as opposed to kind of like embracing and working through the negative. And so if you don't do things that way, then you get that non-authentic feeling. Now, it's the reason why when you travel, they often say that Americans are a bit fake. Now, people also say Americans are really nice. And in fact, when you stay in lots of hostels, travelers will say, or owners of establishments will say, we just love to have Americans here because they always care about everybody else, and they're not, they're mindful about people, and that's great. But people also get this weird feeling around Americans sometimes because they tend to come across not very authentic. Why is that? Because American culture actually promotes this philosophy. Smile even if you don't mean it. And that can be good, to smile even if you don't feel it, because you can bring yourself into a positive mood by doing that. So I get that. But a lot of Americans do it in a way that comes across a bit like creepy. It's like avoiding conflict, avoiding the negative. And again, it creates this kind of gut feeling like something isn't authentic about this person. And so the people who are kind of faux spiritual, and the guys with the man buns, and I just saw a guy with a man bun out here, and walking back to my hostel. That's why I'm thinking about it. So he had like the hemp clothing on, the man bun, and walking around like he's probably pretty high. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. But I got that gut level feeling when I walked by. It's like something's not authentic about him. I know I'm kind of an intuitive, so probably other people feel this way too. It's probably something legit. Probably it relates to this problem of spiritual bypassing. This is the first issue. There's a lot more you can learn about this, and there's a lot of people talking about this. I think it's well known that this is an issue that needs to be sorted out. There is a second issue I can think of that you should do the opposite of if you want to spiritually grow, because the teachers are so backwards in their thinking that you need to just do the completely different thing than they suggest. And this one's more complicated, but it involves a subject I've touched on a lot on this channel, and it involves how to best describe this. And I think, by the way, this is really common. It's maybe even more common than the other issue, because people don't realize that it's actually a backwards way of thinking. There is an idea that we need to get rid of the self, or eliminate or kill, destroy the self, and then merge into something that's not us. The whole merge with God type of situation. And here's what's really going on here. As far as I can see, as far as I can tell, these types of teachings, as positive as they may seem on the surface, it seems like they are steeped in this sort of lack of self-esteem, or a dislike of the self, or a to not love who you are. And then when you don't love who you are, you want to be able to disappear. You want to become something you're not, or to be evaporated, to be destroyed, cosmically destroyed, to go back into the womb of God, as they say. So to go back to where you came from, and get rid of any kind of so-called incarnation, which is considered like this lesser thing that we need to shrug off. So we have this human experience, then we're supposed to spend our whole time thinking about how to get rid of the human experience as quickly as possible, and just jump ship, just bail out of this whole mess. And that may seem like wisdom, but really, in my opinion, it's not. Because something different happens when you acquire self-esteem, self-love, and love of others, is that you actually begin to love your life and love who you are, and then you don't want that to extinguish, and then you end up, very often, I've seen this with many people, many friends, and myself included, you start distancing yourself from the teachings that tell you to do the opposite. You have this realization that's like, hey, I don't think I'm so bad. Hey, I actually like my personality. Hey, I actually like who I see in the mirror. I like all these things about myself, and I don't want it to go away. I want this to maintain. then you begin thinking about an afterlife, like, wow, I actually want to be myself and who I am when I'm, after I cross over. I still want to be me. And then you begin thinking about the people around you. It's like, hey, I actually love my family. I love my community. I love my friends. I don't want to never see them again. I want to keep all this going and just improve upon it and have, find greater and greater, things to enjoy and experience with all of this. And, I don't want to just merge back into source consciousness and destroy myself because, maybe certain Buddhist or Hindu teachings or New Age teachings say that I have to do this, and I don't want that. And it creates this very, creates a lot of anxiety. Because when you have that realization of self-love, it's no longer as appealing to you to want to delete yourself and destroy yourself. Now here's the crazy thing about this. So the people who haven't reached that point of self-love, they can't feel this, and then they will chastise and condemn the person who begins thinking this way. I've seen this time and time again. They'll say, you are merely speaking from your ego. You're too attached to the I identification. Your personality is an illusion. You should seek to remove all illusions and become what you truly are, which is God consciousness, and free yourself from the confines of your personality and your mind. Sounds deep, sounds profound, but it's horse, S-H-I-T, for people who have come to a realization of self-love. Because when you come to that self-love realization, then none of that really is appealing, because you feel like cosmically God has created this thing which is you, this essence, and you suddenly are living within it, and you're not, you're free of self-conscious thought. You're actually free. What you've really done is you've transcended the real ego, not this weird fake ego that faux spiritual teachers have created, but the real ego being like a fake version of yourself. You've actually become one with who and what you really are. So it's like your actions start to become congruent to what you feel and how you think. And if this comes from a place of love, you'll notice that your life begins to significantly improve, especially socially. And really, in many ways, it's a key to success and happiness. But as you move towards that, this is the true spiritual awakening that happens. It's not coming to a realization that you are an illusion, your personality is not real, and what you are is nothing, and then you should become nothing again, or you should merge into something that you're not. This is not spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is coming into self-love, congruence with who you are, and realizing your full potential. And so once this happens, immediately it creates a division among the people who teach the opposite of that. And that's because I've concluded that it's a teaching that comes from people who are coming from a place of pain originally, so they don't like themselves. They haven't achieved that self-love, and so they build a philosophy around their way of looking at reality, which probably comes from a space of a kind of depression, and it's reinforced by their peers. And in place of self-love and acceptance, they can look forward to the destruction of the self and to ascend into something that is no longer what they once were. It's no longer Bob from Carolina. It becomes a celestial entity that is, or perhaps the source of consciousness or something like that, or the universe itself. Sometimes we hear that as a teaching, is to just to merge back into the universe. And they will put down people who are, quote, attached to their identities. This is one of the most annoying or even offensive things, is that they will see people who have achieved self-confidence and self-love and self-awakening, self-awareness, and then they will say, you're too attached to this personality. It's not real. It's fake. Identities are fake. It's ego, quote, blah, 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 and you should be seeking to eliminate all of these things. And that's always been my issue. And so I see elements of this teaching leak out into many, many different areas. And I would totally wager that it almost always comes from a position of lack, comes from a position sometimes of depression. And I don't buy it. And I also think if you want to put on the tinfoil hats, and I know some of you guys watch this channel, you're into this kind of stuff, and I take it from a position of healthy skepticism, but I also take it seriously too because I have some experience in this area. Wouldn't it be easy for a negative entity to capitalize on people who have a philosophy where they don't believe in themselves, or they don't have true love for their identities? Because then if they just want to disappear after death, there could be entities saying, I'll help you do that, just follow me. And really what they're doing is possibly signing up to something that could put them in a really bad situation, especially if it involves concepts like forced reincarnation and things like that. And some of these like Hindu religions and Hindu sects and Buddhists as well, they really into this idea, and they also are really into reincarnation. That's like inescapable almost. And I think these are also very dangerous areas because, again, come from a position of love, acceptance, seeing beauty in yourself as a divine concept, that you accept. You're not attached to like your age, or like you don't look perfect in the mirror. It's like you love, your essence, and you know that this is evolving, expanding, and we are kind of like micro gods. Like we are bits of the fractal that is, quote, God. So we have the potential, each individual, to become their own God in a way, while sharing this reality with infinite other fractals, which is a wonderful concept. And that's very, very different from the idea that a personality and a person is an illusion and shouldn't even exist. And it's so depressing, isn't it? To think like that. It's just astonishing to me. But people do think like this, and it is dangerous philosophy and a very negative philosophy. And the best thing to do probably is to do the opposite of what they say. Well, I can think of more examples of this as well. Doing the opposite of what some guru claims. For example, having to reincarnate, or I could probably think of 10 more examples, but I'm gonna cut this short. Hell, maybe I'll make it into an ebook someday. I don't know. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Get involved at afterlifetopics.com. If you like what I have to say, you can also book a coaching consultation with me. Just shoot me an email. I have my info down in the YouTube description. Pick up books like Understanding Life After Death on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever you might be able to find it. That's kind of where I come from. I have the big group on Facebook, all that jazz to help us on this figuring out this whole mess that is human existence. But we're getting through it. I've got some more videos coming up soon, and I guess that's it for now. I'll see you guys next time.